Hello and welcome to Some Good Book News. I don't know if you're like me, but you're still recovering from that turkey coma, but I just want some extra good news, so we're throwing in another episode today. First up, we have an update from Andrew Avner, who we've seen on this channel before. His book, Toro, just won Best Audiobook at the NYC Big Book Awards. In addition, the hard copy won Distinguished Favorite in the Juvenile Fiction section. I have had the absolute pleasure of listening to this audiobook, and let me tell you, it was amazing. It was hands down the best middle grade audiobook I have read in ages and possibly ever. The multiple voice actors and actresses, the music in the background and the sound effects, I'm not normally one for sound effects, but this time it was perfect. I am honestly so excited to see what this author writes next. Next up, we have David Lucero, an author that I've had the pleasure of reading and reviewing for over 3 books now. He's recently completed 2 new manuscripts. I am so excited to hear that he has had the time and the energy to finish 2 whole manuscripts and that he is getting ready to publish them soon. I had the absolute joy and pleasure of reading one of them a little bit early, so let's just say this is gonna be like a really exciting book. And finally, we have some fabulous news from Jennifer and Daniel Fraser. Now, this writing duo is also husband and wife, and they just published Princess Rose and the Quest for the Golden Gown. Now, this news came a few weeks ago, and it was in the midst of election season. So they were getting mail from candidates left and right. And on a whim, they decided to open up a letter from Amy McGrath, a Kentucky Senate candidate. Much to their surprise, it wasn't voting related. It was purely a congratulatory message about publishing Princess Rose. It's honestly such a kind and thoughtful gesture, and it really was a highlight to the day. Now for the video clips. All right, and now we have our video clips. Today we have a couple of videos from some extra special authors. One of them you know and love from our show before. She has a really exciting announcement about her latest project, which was actually a little bit closer to Halloween than it is Thanksgiving, but I feel like this year, let's just celebrate all the holidays whenever we want. Am I right? And the second is some very exciting news from a new author to this channel, but one who I've had the pleasure of reading, and I'm so excited for him. Let's get to it.
Hello, I'm Jessica D. Adams, author of the Underground Toy Society children's books, and I had so much fun making the first coloring book that I decided to make a Halloween coloring book and a Christmas coloring book. There's a whole bunch of really cool things to do in the book, and we hope you check it out online. It's available on Teachers Pay Teachers, on Amazon, and on Smashwords. Well, that's my good news. Thank you.
Hey, my name is Shaquille Kanish, and I am one half of the authors of the new novel, The Sigil. My good news for the month is that we have recently been picked up by Three Furies Press, which is a publishing agency. So we went from self-published to fully published, which is great and awesome. We'll be re-releasing the novel March 4th, 2021. So keep a lookout for that. The sequel will be coming out November something 2021. So the date isn't set yet, but the sequel will be coming out next year as well. So yeah, we're super excited about that. We just wanted to share the news with all you guys, and we really look forward to gaining some new fans and hearing what you guys think about the book. So thanks.
Oh my gosh, I am just so happy to have so much good news. Next up, we have the weather brought to you by Agatha the Weather Turtle. Agatha, take it away. You nailed it. Next up, we have the interview portion. Hello and welcome to Some Good Book News. I am a huge fan and longtime reader of both Michael and Phyllis, and I'm so excited that you two could join us today. Could you start by introducing yourselves a little bit?
Okay, whenever you're ready.
Ma, you could start and I'll go second.
Hi, my name is Phyllis. I write children's books under Carol P. Roman, and I write adult fiction under Britt London. Nice to be here. Thank you for inviting us.
Hey, Miranda. Pleasure to finally meet you. And my name is Michael Okon, and I write under the name Michael Samuels. And I have the books here, but I'm not hawking the books yet, Mom. So
Okay.
I'll hawk the books in a minute or two. I don't want to come out and say, but I wrote spiritual and law of attraction books under Michael Samuels. I've written books under Michael Philip Cash, which is my indie author name. And I've written, I didn't see it, but that's Monsterland.
Well,
That's
no,
my-
those are not self-published. Actually, those
Oh,
are
that's actually published.
those are traditionally published.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Michael Samuels, Michael Philip Cash, and Michael Okon.
But for those people who don't know, Michael is my son, and I'm his momager.
I don't know
and
who
his
this-
mother.
But yes, this is my mother, Phyllis Okon, Carol P. Roman. And the name Carol P. Roman is actually my grandparents' name. It's Carol was my grandmother, and Phyllis obviously is P, and then Roman is my grandfather. So my mom is honoring her parents, which are my grandparents, as a best-selling self-published indie author.
So Michael, as you mentioned earlier, you started as a self-published author and then made that transition to a traditionally published. I was really curious if you could tell us a little bit more about that process and why you decided to make that change.
Amazing question, and it's a little bit of a story. So I used to write screenplays in college. I was obsessed with writing screenplays. I took all of my old screenplays in college and I turned them into novels under the moniker Michael Philip Cash. And they all became bestsellers. And I was pumping out about 3 books a year, stuff that I wanted to write about, stuff that I wrote scripts about. And I had a beat sheet on where I wanted the stories to go. A gentleman contacted me, and he was an agent. He wanted to represent me. And this is about 15 books into being self-published. And if you want to know how I got self-published, I'll give you the long and the short of it. Read this book. This has every step on how I became a published author. The steps that I took to become a published author, because everybody wants to get published, right? Every indie author wants to get published, I think. So he wrote me. He's like, I want to represent you. I want to represent your books. I said, wonderful. That's incredible. What do I do? He's like, you got to sign a contract. I said, okay. Fast forward about 4 years later, I have 3 published books out.
So I'm also really curious, what was the biggest difference that you noticed when you went from indie to traditionally published?
Much less creative and much slower than self-publishing. Self-publishing, it's your universe. You want to put out 4 or 5 books a year. If you could write 4 or 5 manuscripts, it's your world to own. You have to understand that every book that you're reading, when it's a published book, that book took years to come to fruition. That did not take, I literally wrote a book like from January to February, and by April, it was on Amazon and all over the world, where I have a manuscript now and it's being shopped to, the publishing companies in New York. And I submitted that to him in like April. It's your choice, but I want to be recognized by the entertainment industry, and you won't be when you're self-published, unfortunately.
Again, I want to reiterate what Michael said. I love the creative control you have. When, I decided to write a book on culture, wrote books on If You Were Me and Lived In, and they became bestsellers on Amazon. They were picked up by the homeschool crowd who loves that. They begged me to write a book for older children. I did the historical series, which, they've won awards. So you have more control. And like Michael said, there were weekends that I wrote 4 books in those series and published them the following week once they were through editing or whatever. But you have to pay for everything yourself. There's the creative edit where we ask a beta reader to read and find the plot holes. And then then you have to go for a grammar edit. And then there's like all these different kinds of edits that you go through, and we invest. They all cost money to do, and we invest in them, and there are still mistakes when you self-publish. And then starts the hard work of marketing, which I found fun. It was a lot of fun to market I'm marketing over 100 books between Michael's and my own.
So I remember from a previous episode of Some Good Book News that you were talking about your joke book and how it shot to the top of the charts. Could you explain a little bit more about what happened and the background of that?
What had happened was I was contacted by a publisher, and they asked me to write a book on jokes. And I said, I don't feel, they said, don't worry, try it. So I wrote the joke book, and I want to say I wrote it over vacation. We were in Florida, and in Disneyland. And at night, I would come back and work on the joke book. I submitted it, and I didn't think much about it. And the book got published, and I, of course, did everything that they asked me to do. And the book, out of the gate, was chosen as a Vine choice, so it started picking up a lot of reviews, and people loved it from Amazon as a toy pick. And when it was chosen as a toy pick, the book shot into not only the top of its genre, but in the top 100 books of Amazon. And from that, it rose steadily. By the time, unfortunately, coronavirus broke out, I guess parents were looking for a little levity and keep the kids occupied. The book made it to #1 on all of Amazon. I'll show you the book. And it was every morning I would wake up at 5:30, as I usually do, and I'd see that best-selling flag, and then I would see that I was in that top 100 of Amazon, and I was beating out famous books. And when it finally reached #1, I started getting contacted by newspapers saying, "Well, you're an indie. How did you do that?" And it was a pretty, every day brought something. I would call the kids and, my 2 sons, and I would say, "You can't believe who called." And so it was pretty exciting.
I'm 42 years old, and she still calls me her
Yeah,
kid.
well, you're my kid.
So we touched on this a little bit earlier. I am really curious, what is it like when you both are publishing? What's it like to have 2 authors in the family?
I think that's the thing that indie writers don't realize, that, how they say it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to publish a book. And writers should not be afraid to include people in the process. The book becomes richer when you get, constructive criticism. Eric, his brother, my other son, and I help him in the same way. I read my books to them. We work together in an office.
It's a definite group effort.
Pre-COVID, and we would sit down. We would get there at 5:36 in the morning, and before the workday would start, we would, I would take my books and read it to them, and they would say, "Ma, nobody uses that anymore," and camcorders went out, or whatever it is, or a person would use the cloud, or whatever it is. But we all help each other. They'll say things. That's not how a 28-year-old would think. So we all kind of bounce things off each other and give each other help with bringing many voices to a story.
Do you have any suggestions for new authors or current authors on how to improve their writing and make it big?
If this is a career that you want, you got to write, and you got to do it step by step, and you have to have patience.
I want to add to that is, don't quit your day
100%.
job. You've got to continue working. You want to write, you can write at night or write during the day when you're in work at night or whatever, but don't think that you're going to write this book and you're going to make. Indie writers think that they can write a book and then just move on to the other, but you have to do 50% writing and then 50% publicity. You've got to submit it. You've got to do podcasts. You have to get reviews. There's so many aspects navigating indie world about the process. Of course, it's outdated now because things have changed, but you have to constantly get your name out there. And I think because we did that, we did get noticed enough to get picked up. The best thing an author could do is get on a good Goodreads thread, speak with other authors, and use their experience. Step in the footsteps that went before you.
So I have one last pressing question, and it is, what's next? Do you have any other projects currently in the works? Do you have anything that you give us a little sneak peek of?
To this here, this book I just published. It's in pre-order, and it's a lot of fun. And it's 800 jokes, and it's not just for kids. And it's a funny book. I've tried it out on adults in the office when we were in the office, and kids. It's a perfect book for kids to practice their reading skills. Understand, opens gateways for discussion on what they don't understand. So I really enjoyed writing the joke book. With the agent, I've got 2 books out. One is a picture book about insects, and the other one is kind of like, I would say, Harry Potter meets Percy Jackson, but with superheroes. So I'm really excited about that one, and it's my first full-length novel. I've never written anything that big, and I'm really excited about it. I loved the characters. I found it hard to pull out. When I finished the book, I wanted to stay and play with them. They were especially Arush. And I just love my characters in that book. So that's what we're waiting. And hopefully we're going to be able to make a big announcement about that, Miranda.
I have this techno thriller based in the Hamptons that is being shopped around now by my agent. Now, I've also started beating about 3 different stories. It's a comedy about these 2 like Bill and Ted type dudes who are discovering the meaning of life while robbing 3 casinos in Vegas, completely drunk out of their mind. So that's the first story. I don't know if I'm going to go through with that yet because it's a little different from what I've been doing. I do a lot of monsters. I do a lot of ghosts. This is going to be a more spiritual, like Bill and Ted type book. Then I have Myth America. Just it gets me. Myth America is about I'm thinking like a family, a young vampire growing up in suburbia, trying to get into the Miss America pageant, or a group of monsters all vying for the Myth America pageant. So they're all myths competing in this glamour pageant. So I'm working on 2 of those now, and just nonstop researching, writing. I finished 2 novels. Monsterland 3 is finished, and I'm waiting for this other novel to get picked up, and then hopefully we could put out Monsterland 3 also. So have a lot of good stuff in the campfire.
Thank you so much for joining us today. I don't know about you all, but I loved the good news shown, and I'm just so excited there's more good news out there. Thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you, and happy reading.